The last year has been video call after video call after video call. So I decided to create a professional and fairly permanent video call setup because I wanted to look and feel good while I was talking with clients. And if we're gonna be real, video calls are 100% here to stay. Today, I'm going to be showing you how I turned my boring, small office into an epic mini film studio. Let's dive in with a quick overview. When you're creating a space for consistently hosting video calls, you want to consider 4 things: your background, your lighting, your audio, and your camera. Let's start off with the elephant in the room, the backdrop. If we're gonna be honest, it's approaching the size of a real elephant. I bought this industrial grade workbench, which was the most expensive component of the build, but I wanted to go all out. I wanted to do things right. Without getting too into the weeds, I built a wooden frame around the workbench and attached a piece of plywood to offer a smooth and solid looking background. It looked generally pretty good, but what did I say earlier? But I wanted to go all out, all out, all out. So I ordered walnut, yes, walnut, to place over the plywood in the style of an accent wall. If I was to give my past self a piece of advice, or even you if you're looking at building something like this, I would find someplace local where you can actually see the lumber in person, or go with a different backdrop. Once I had the workbench and the accent wall good to go, I did some teeny tiny interior decorating. You don't want the place to be super empty. You want it to have just a little bit of who you are. So I've got a very, very real plant here. Super real. And then I've got a slate because I'm a director and I work in the film industry. So far, I've shown you the craziest part of my setup, the backdrop. So let's dive in to the remaining 3 parts, which are going to be simpler, cheaper, and just generally easier to access. Let's talk about lighting. I specifically left the tops of these 4x4s exposed for rigging purposes. Here, I mounted a baby pin wall plate and attached one of my old LEDs to act as a rim light. I also attached the rim light to a smart plug, which means that I can turn it on and off from my phone. I freaking love this function. The whole point of a rim light is to add a little bit of light to the room, but mostly in this sense, it's to shine down on me and add some texture to my hair and my shoulders. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, you can see that it just pops. It really brings me off from the background and really helps things out. Now, I know that this is like a formal film light. You don't need to spend hundreds of dollars on something like this. You can simply take a lamp that you have, or even have a window off in the backdrop, take that lamp, turn it on, put it right off camera. You don't want it on camera, and try to lift it up if possible. So like a standing lamp, specifically one that like has a head that you can rotate. You could even put like a little bit of diffusion, and by diffusion I mean like parchment paper in front of it so it's not as harsh coming in. Just experiment a little bit with that and you'll be golden. The next big question you should really be asking yourself is, how am I gonna light my face? I'm not using anything fancy. I'm actually using a softbox from about 8 or 9 years ago. Shout out to my sister for always supporting me even when I wasn't making money off of my video content. That softbox is a workhorse. It is very simple, it is cheap, and it puts out great soft light. I highly advise, like if you're going to get anything for this setup, buy a softbox. It's really cheap. I'll link a similar one in the description below. Do it, it'll make you look awesome. I also purchased the desk mount for the light, which is nice because it removed the need for a light stand with legs. And trust me, I've got enough to trip over in this room as it is. I also leave the overhead light on, and I've got diffused blinds in front of my desk. If you're going to invest in any component of lighting here, invest in the softbox. It's cheap, like 40, 50 bucks. I'm gonna list a few options below, a few different price ranges. A softbox will really make a world of a difference. As far as your rim light goes though, or even just like adding fill to the room, you can just use a normal lamp. You're not really seeing it, it's pretty off screen anyways, but the softbox is really what adds a ton of dimension to making you look good. So spend the 40, 50 bucks and look awesome. Lighting is obviously very important, but your camera is also really critical when we're talking about visual quality. Let's do a little experiment. Right now, you are looking at me on the company camera. This is what we use to film products, to film people, to film commercials, tell stories. Now, you're looking at me on my webcam. This is not my built-in webcam, this is an external webcam. It is a beautiful 4K webcam. It does cost multiple hundreds of dollars, but it looks pretty good. I mean, obviously it can't compare with the amazing camera that I'm filming on right now that we use on commercials. But in the scheme of things, this is way better than my built-in camera on my laptop. Yeah, you can see that the built-in camera on my laptop, it just does not, it's not the same. It does not stack up. It's grainy, it's dark, it's not as high definition. And then you compare that to the 4K webcam, and it looks pretty freaking awesome. Then you compare that to the high-level cinema camera that we actually film commercials on, and it's just a world of difference. And this is exactly why I'm sharing this all with you, because we should be taking it seriously. If you have a client, or in my case, like I'm talking to clients all the time, I want them to feel like I'm going to bring the same level of high-quality visuals to their project as I do for myself. And that's really at the core of this. I'm taking myself seriously, and they know that I'll take their project seriously. Okay, we've talked about my backdrop, we've talked about my lighting, and we've talked about the camera that I use to video conference with. The last component, audio. Okay, with this next insight, I know that a couple of my creative colleagues, especially if they're in camera department, might become my enemies. I say that because audio is the most important part of video storytelling. Yes, the camera matters. Yes, the lighting matters. Yes, the story matters. Yes, the backdrop, what the visual on screen matters. But if you can't clearly understand what the person on screen is saying, you're not gonna care. If the music is too loud, you're not going to care. If something is going wrong in the audio mix, you're going to lose interest real quick. All of this audio windup is really just prefacing the fact that I bought a really nice microphone for my permanent video conferencing setup. It's actually the same microphone that our production company uses on professional commercial productions. Because my microphone is so fancy, it does require 48 volt phantom power, so I have a Focusrite Scarlett, which the microphone gets plugged into. Then from there, it goes into the computer. So in my video conferencing software, I just set the input as the Scarlett, which is my shotgun microphone, which is how I sound so high definition right now. I'm actually recording on that same microphone. And then my output is set to my wireless earbuds. So when I'm on a video call, I can wirelessly hear people that I'm talking with, but they hear me through my crispy, high definition, fancy microphone. Yes, both crispy and high definition and fancy. All three of those terms. That's how much I love this microphone. So inherently, we can generally believe that if it costs more, it's better quality, right? Like generally as a rule of thumb, that's true. Not always the case. We're not going to get into that, but generally a rule of thumb. Let's switch over to the audio, built-in audio from my wireless earbuds.
So when I'm on a video conference, if I was just to put on my wireless earbuds, this is what I would sound like. It's not quite as crisp. It's not quite as clear. It's a little muddy. It's not quite great. And let's now switch back to that professional microphone.
This is what people hear me sound like because I spent a lot of money to sound good. Now, complete disclaimer, this microphone does not always sit at my desk. It's usually at my desk, usually for video conferencing. But sometimes, we have a 2-person interview. We have multiple people walking around. We need multiple booms moving all the time. It's a business investment. It's really a way for my company to also be able to have multiple microphones. We already had one, this is the second one, so it's dual purpose. For my purposes, yes, it's a lot of money, but it pays off in dividends because I sound great on video conferencing, and we have another incredibly high quality microphone when we do need to capture 2 audio sources simultaneously. Looking back on my calendar, I've got a little over 100 meetings that took place remotely over the past 6 months. That is a lot of meetings, and not all those meetings are just one-on-one. A lot of them are me working with a marketing team or a creative agency team to figure out the stories, the deliverables, the timelines, all the things. At these meetings, people are seeing how professional I look, how seriously I take myself, and they're also hearing how seriously I take myself. They're making gut decisions split-second decisions on whether or not I'm going to be the right fit, my team is going to be the right fit for this project. And they're seeing that we take ourselves seriously, so obviously we're going to take their project seriously. I mean, really, you need to figure out what works best for you. The background, the lighting, the audio, the camera, you may not go as all out as I did, but it might not matter as much for you. It might not be quite as pressing. For me, we're talking about me meeting with teams that are maybe handing me a 50, 60, 70, whatever $1,000 project. Yes, my setup costs a lot of money. At the end of the day, we're really weighing that with, large budgets that I am getting a great first handshake, a great first impression on whether or not they should work with me. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you got some knowledge learned from this video, got some insights on how to make your setup better. And if you did, please consider sharing it with a friend. That really goes a long ways in terms of getting this type of content out there. Our whole brand is to create compelling stories to make positive impact on the world, but part of that process is making this behind the scenes content so that other people can do the same thing. So please take this seriously, make yourself look and sound good, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Share it with someone. Have a great rest of your day.